Hi, and welcome to the RRTC webcast on Dispelling the Myths of Conversion. I'm Terry Blankenship. Thank you for joining us today. Before we get started, there are a couple of items that I wanted to go over with you. First of all, the webcast will be archived for you, and we will email you the username and password tomorrow so you can access it. Secondly, the program is open caption, so if you need this feature, just click on your captioning link off of the webcast page. And thirdly, following the webcast today, we'll have an online chat room where you can submit your questions to our presenter. It is now my pleasure to introduce our presenter today, Suzanne Hutcheson. Suzanne is the president and CEO of Tri-County Tech. She has successfully led her organization from a sheltered workshop to a totally community-based organization. Suzanne also serves as a member on the APSE National Executive Board, the Treasure Coast Workforce Development Board, the Florida APSE Board of Directors, and the United Way Volunteer and Community Resource Board of Directors. So let's get started, and I would now like to turn the program over to Suzanne.
Thanks, Terry, and thank you all for watching today. I'm going to talk about dispelling the myths of conversion, and the first one that I'd like to dispel is that you can have a successful organization that goes through a conversion effort, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about Tri-County Tech. The Tech is TEC. It stands for Training, Employment, and Community. Just to give you a very quick historical background on our organization, we're located in Stuart, Florida. Great place to come and visit, so feel free to do that, after you hear everything that we have to say and you want to come and see us. But just to give you a tiny historical perspective to kind of let you know where we came from. In 1964, the organization was founded by a group of parents. Those parents felt that their sons and daughters needed more in life than sitting home and simply watching TV and doing nothing else. So the organization started as Pioneer Occupational Center for the Handicapped. In 1974, when state and federal dollars started being available for things like developmental training and other kinds of vocational programs, we changed our name to the Tri-County Rehabilitation Center Incorporated and began efforts toward work services. We served around 79 consumers at that point with about 15 to 16 staff. In 1984, and we ran a fairly successful sheltered workshop till about 1984. About 1984, we had approximately 175 consumers who came to our organization on a daily basis and did workshop kinds of things, taking things apart, putting them together, mailing kinds of things, etc. In 1984, we began to hear about supported employment and became very excited about it and looked at what it meant to our organization. We heard from people like Paul Wayman and Karen Flippo and David Mank and all of the names that you're still hearing today as the gurus of supported employment, and really began to look at what it meant to our organization. Now what I'm going to do today is to kind of, as we get into this, is to give you a logical kind of way to look at conversion and some of the things that we did that seemed to work well, so I won't go into a lot of it now. But in 1984, we began our first supported employment efforts. We looked at competitive employment as an option, and we looked at crew service as an option. And one of the early stories that I tell is that when we began to look at work crews, we did some janitorial work, and sure enough, transportation became a major problem for us. We worked with a taxi cab company and ended up determining that limo service was the only way to help get our consumers to and from the bank they were working at. So our first jobs not only started with people making real wages for real jobs, but also riding in limos to that job. So my first message to you is that almost any problem can be overcome if you have a staff that's creative enough. As we got into supported employment and our staff continued to identify folks who we felt should be working in the community, it became real clear to us real quick. The conversion to us meant a total change in our organizational structure. In 1990, we realized we could no longer both afford to support a 19,000 square foot building and move people into the community. So our board took an incredibly brave step, and we sold our building and basically took away what most people considered to be our major safety net. However, that was one of the best things we ever did, and today in 2003, our organization is totally community-based. Our first plan was a 3-year plan, and I still like to tell people we are in the 18th year of a 3-year conversion plan. Just to give you some examples real quick of some of the jobs that we have helped people become really, really good at, just very quickly. Ruth is the head microfilm person for a local law firm. Now, Ruth was raised in an institution, came to our sheltered workshop, was there for about 15 years, and then decided she wanted a real job. Ruth has been in her job now for 12 years, is making about $10 an hour, which in our area is a good wage, has bought her own home, and is really kind of living the American dream. Leanne had significant mobility issues as well as significant mental retardation. The one thing we could find out from Leanne, because her verbal ability wasn't really great, was that she really likes animals. She's worked for a vet now for at least 10 years, is making a really good salary there, and went from cleaning cages to now being the person who greets visitors and helps bring the animals in. Glenn is a major force at the Martin Memorial Medical Center. He delivers things all over the four stories of the building and really is a well-known fixture there. Glenn, again, has mental retardation and has been working there for a number of years, has been their employee of the month throughout the whole hospital at least 4 times since he's been there. Just a quick historical perspective on our organization is how it's changed since 1984 and 85. In 1985, we only had 1 location. Today we have 7 locations. In 1985, we were serving 2 counties. Today we're serving 8. We've gone from serving 175 consumers to 2,500 consumers, totally in all of our programs. We have 515 people that we place a year, and 250 people move in to follow along every year. In 1985, we had no employment consultants. Today we have 31. In 1985, we were serving individuals with developmental disabilities only. Today, we're serving individuals with all kinds of challenges to work and also welfare to work recipients. In 1985, we had 5 different program types, and today, in 2003, we have 17 different program types. Our organizational budget in 1985 was $650,000. Today, it's a little over $4 million. In 1985, we had 34 staff members. Today, we have 130. We credit all of that to the fact that we took a very strong approach to converting our organization because we believe that all people should have a place in their community. As we start into this, what I want to talk to you a little bit about is what is conversion. And I was talking to Grant Ravel with VCU a little earlier, and he reminded me that just as all politics are local, all conversion is local. Conversion to Tri-County Tech meant that we totally converted the organization. We felt that everyone that we worked with should have an opportunity to work. Conversion to you in your area might be different than that. It might have to be incremental. It might be focused on specific areas of your organization. It may be a new startup business. Maybe you believe so strongly in supported employment that you feel, in fact, that you want to start a business that is only supported employment focused, and we certainly think that's a great idea. The factors you have to consider no matter what kind of approach you take to conversion are the politics of your area, the funding within your area, and also other influences on your organization, such as how many niche contracts you have, what kind of dollars are available to, in fact, be converted, what impact does it have on other kinds of contract work that you have, as well as your thrift shop efforts and things along those lines. So the reality is that conversion really is something that you look at based on your own organization and how it can change. But the guiding principle has to be a belief that all people, in fact, need to be, should be, have the right to be, and the responsibility to be a working member of our society. One of our little taglines at Tri-County Tech is we create taxpayers. As we go into this and we look at the fact that it's actually 2003 and not 1984, we wanted to at least start out recognizing some of the changes that happened since Tri-County Tech actually looked at converting. And as we go back to the overhead, politics are really one of the major things that have changed. In the 80s and early 1990s, we were focused on people. We were focused on people going back to work. We were focused on welfare to work. Society felt very strongly that people who were on welfare needed to work. It seemed at that time that people with disabilities would surely be next. The Americans with Disabilities Act was passed. Our first real push and real ability to have some civil rights attached to what we do. If you look today, we're more focused on the fiscal arena. We're more focused on, in fact, how much can you do with this very little bit of money. There's very little discussion anymore about even individual funding streams or funding pieces. It's more, wait a minute, we're not that interested in what you want to do that's new. It's can you continue exactly as you are. Charles Dickens kind of said it best, I guess, and that it's the best of times and the worst of times. For the last number of years, self-determination has been our mantra. We have felt strongly that all people had the right to determine themselves what kind of job they had, where they would go, etc. Our Congress and other politics have been very, very strong in looking at that. And some of the efforts to increase funding have been things like the ticket to work, revenue maximization, Medicaid buy-in, all of those things that have different meanings in different states. But what we find in many cases is some of the new efforts to increase funding have really put walls between the consumer and the provider. In many cases, the provider has in their hands the ability to choose or not to choose to provide these kinds of services. So in some cases, it's made it almost harder for the consumers that we serve. There's lots of work left to do, but these are changes, at least in the political arena, that have really been interesting. Our funding streams have changed. In 1984, dollars came to us almost on a daily rate kind of thing. We were able to move dollars around and to provide services within an existing funding stream. Now Medicaid services are categorical. They're very difficult for placement or phase one services. In many states, they're not. Like, I'm from Florida. We don't use them hardly at all for phase one services. And in many states, not only are they not possible for the phase one services, but also for the follow-along services. So far, we've been lucky in Florida, and we're able to continue to use some dollars for phase two, but not a lot. Vocational rehabilitation, which is another major funding source for us, has changed a lot to performance-based or hourly. And not only does it make it harder, especially for a small organization, to work through these performance-based benchmarks, but it causes incredible cash flow issues. So funding streams have changed a lot. There's also been a real lack of conversion efforts. I think we all pretty much know that for every one person that goes into supported employment, 4 people go into sheltered workshops. So we still have a long road ahead of us to really convince everyone and to convince the providers and the policymakers that really conversion efforts that actually lead to employment and community-based services for people with disabilities, we've just got a long road to go for that. The economy, with a war potentially in our future, and the economy being very, very difficult these days, it's really hard for anyone to have a crystal ball to be able to say things are going to get better, things are going to get worse. If we make conversion efforts, how do we know that we can sustain them, et cetera? So the economy really does play a major factor in whether a person, an organization, can convert or not. 9/11 changed our world forever. We all know that. 9/11 probably had the biggest impact of any of our lifetimes at this point. One of the things that I think we need to look at with 9/11, though, is it's a real opportunity for us as America rebuilds and as America looks again at who and what we're going to be in the future. It's a perfect time for those of us who are advocates to really get our message back to the decision makers at all levels, that in fact employment for people with disabilities, community-based opportunities such as being able to live in their home, being able to participate in the community, etc. It's a real opportunity for us to be able to bring that back to the forefront and use it as an opportunity to make our case. Things that have stayed the same since 1984 is that services remain predominantly facility-based. Again, while employment is rising, and that's the really, really good news, there are more people going into competitive employment, be it through supported employment or general employment. But the reality is that there's still 4 to 1 moving into sheltered workshops. So we've still got a ways to go, but there's not a doubt in my mind that we can do it. Policy still does not support supported employment. It more supports congregate types of funding, and it's a real challenge sometimes to make sure that we can in fact get the funding in place to do conversion or even to move more people into employment. The trace and plane model still doesn't work. We can still do training and training and training and move a person into a real job, and they really need the assistance on the job to learn the job. And that's what we still need to be focusing on. The best thing, however, is that consumers still can and want to work in real jobs in the community. So from a standpoint of there's a lot of changes, there's a lot that's the same, but the most exciting part is that the people that we all are in the field to work with all want, in fact, the same thing that we do, to have a life that is meaningful, to work in the community with everyone else, to live and play and be a part of the community. Another bright light are the school systems. School systems in many locations are focusing more and more and more on employment-based outcomes for their students, so that when the student actually graduates, they have a job in place. So there are some very positive things in the future. And as long as we can keep the positive focus, I think we can absolutely make anything happen. When our organization looked at conversion, and as we look at conversion now, there are 4 factors I think that are necessary for conversion. One is that all conversion has to be mission-based. It has to be based on a belief system and a value system that says, again, that everyone who has a disability or not a disability, everyone has the right, the responsibility, and should have the opportunity to work and be a part of their community. The second part is that it needs to be consumer-focused, that it needs to be focused on the individual and what that individual wants to do. The third piece is it has to have strong programmatic and fiscal planning. Probably back in 1984, we spent most of our time on looking at the programmatic pieces to supported employment. Today, more than ever, you have to focus both on the programmatic and the fiscal aspects of conversion and of employment services. And last but not least, more again today probably than ever, it has to be focused with partnerships and collaborations. It's supported employment, competitive employment, cannot be done in a vacuum any longer. You simply have to be a part of the total community, and not just the total community of disability, but the community that you live in and work in. So, let's start on the first piece, which talks about missions. I'm going to read to you our mission from 1984. See if this sounds familiar to you in any of the missions that you still have or that you still hear. In 1984, Tri-County Tech's mission goes as follows. Tri-County Tech serves individuals, infants and adults, who need special training, education, employment, and living arrangements to improve their quality of life and become active participants in their community. By the time I got through saying that to many people, their eyes glazed over. And as I began, especially at Chamber of Commerce meetings or other public meetings, to build from there, I had already lost them, totally lost them. And so, in the past couple of years, Tri-County Tech's mission now is helping people succeed. 3 words. Now, those 3 words, we have 4 divisions, all have expansion on them as you go to the different divisions. But when someone asks now, what does Tri-County Tech do? It's very easy for me to say, we help people succeed. And if I'm talking about our employment program, it's very easy to say we help people find and keep jobs with employers like you. And we help provide that on-the-job training, and we help that person become a part of your workforce. We can help you cut down on your turnover cost. We can help you fill positions with qualified employees. We can help you in many ways. Sometimes they'll look at me and say, we thought you worked with people with disabilities, or we thought you worked with special populations. And I'll say, well, yes, we do that too. But our mission for the folks that we work with is helping people succeed and helping them be a part of their community. So one of the things that we believe strongly is that to be a part of the community, you have to look and feel and talk and dress and everything else like the rest of the community. And helping people succeed kind of did that for us. It almost kind of turned lights on that probably should have been turned on years before. But we began to believe that what we really did is we offered a service. And that service really was supported employment. And supported employment is an outcome-based method of helping people find and keep jobs. So that's one of the things that worked with us incredibly. Along with mission, the organization has to be value-based. For example, when you ask the following question, the answer has to be yes in all cases. And that question is, do you believe that all people, regardless of disability, can and should work? That should be the first question that you ask your board members. That should be the first question that you ask your staff. That should be the first question that families have to answer. And most importantly, the consumer that you're working with should say, yes, this is what I want. So when you look at your first part of conversion, if you don't have a mission and if you don't have an organization that buys into the mission, that all people have the right, the responsibility, and should have the opportunity to work, then you've got some work to do, because all of the rest of it won't work without that. I work with a number of organizations that go, oh, values clarification. We've done that so many times. We've done values clarification over and over again. And my message to them all the time is, if you don't do it again, if you don't look at values clarification, or at least determine that your organization has the values that it takes, you're going to be spinning your wheels for a while, and you'll be coming back to it. So it's so much easier to do it right from the first. The second part is consumer focused. What's funny about most of our programs is that when we ask a person when they first come in, what do they want? In most cases, they say they want to work. They say they want a job. They say they want, in one way or another, to be part of the community. In so many cases, you look at whatever you call your plan and whatever your state you're in, and that plan really has as an outcome competitive employment. But what is built in so much of the time is so much process to get the person there. Someone did a study once, and if they had done all of the things that were in a person's program plan, it would have taken them something like 119 years before the person would have a job. So the first thing that you need to look at is some form of person-centered planning. If you are serious about placing people in jobs, and if you're serious about assisting that person, then you've got to basically make them the center of the process. And one of the best ways, or one of the only ways to do that, is to sit them down with the people who they know and trust and want to work with, and look at what in fact they want to do and who's going to be there to help them. It's got to be based on wants, not needs, and wants sometimes not what the person can do. We started a number of years ago, instead of doing any formal evaluation, we started looking at functional evaluations. We started looking at what do you do over the weekend? What do you like to do? What are the kinds of things that interest you? What do you do over the weekend? First of all, in many cases, we were amazed at how little some of the people that we were working with had done. We all have the stories of taking someone to the movie for the first time, or helping someone go to dinner at some place other than fast food restaurants. We all have those stories. And what we found is when we listen to the stories of what the person likes and wants to do, it makes a difference. So when a person tells you they want to be an airline pilot, and you know because of their disability there's no way they can do that, you can really help them by gearing them back to what are the kinds of things they might be able to do at a local airport that would in fact put them near airplanes or put them in proximity to the things that they like and want to do. The next thing is real choice. And again, it goes back to what the person wants to do and the interest that they've shown you. It's really easy to look at the board and see what jobs are available and say, okay, I know this person can do this job. It's a lot harder to say the job that this person might be able to do or want to do isn't there yet, and to continue to look at those kinds of things. Balancing the family, and I have versus the consumer choice. Because in many cases we talk about working with the family, and we do talk about having the family involved and really a part of every decision that the person needs to make. However, we believe that our service is to the consumer. And we believe that if the consumer has indicated to us that they want a job and they're willing to try as hard as they can, we work as hard as we can with that family to convince them that that person should have a chance. One of the things that we started doing years ago when we became very serious about employment and about that being the best option for people was we quit giving tours of our organization. Now, we sold our building, so we don't have anything to tour anymore. But what we did was we began to stop giving tours. And in fact, what we would do, we would take families to businesses that were employing people with disabilities that we had helped place, and we let the families talk to the other families or talk to the individual who was working. Of course, we worked it around break times, and we tried not to be obtrusive, but we found more and more that when the families could talk to the families and the consumers could talk to the consumers, that the choice issue became a lot easier to deal with. One of my favorite quotes, and one of the only ones that I'm going to give you today, is destiny is a matter of choice, not chance. Most of us live our lives totally believing that. We believe strongly that we can be whoever and what we want to be. What we don't do in many of the programs that we have, in many of the, in much of our field, is give the consumers that we work with that same chance. We really have felt over the years that it was up to us to take care of them, to take care of safety, to make sure that nothing happened to them. And unfortunately, that's what's happened. Nothing has happened for many people. So as we looked at conversion and as we began more and more to believe in the arena we were in, this destiny became more and more important to us, and we wanted to make sure that everyone we worked with had that same opportunity. It's really easy to say it. It's a lot harder to do it. But when you start looking at what the choices are that you've made in your life and the kinds of things that you've done, then it's a lot easier to see why someone else might want to do those same things. Looking at programmatic and fiscal planning, the two have to go hand in hand. Like I said, years ago, you could pretty much do a conversion effort, or you could start to look at it because funding wasn't as difficult as it is now. But as you look at it, there are three major things that you need to look at conversion with. And the first I start with is management. Because if management doesn't support it, it's most likely not going to happen. The key to management when you're looking at a conversion effort, or you're looking at major employment services, you're looking at services that aren't offered at a desk. You're not looking at services that are offered with people behind their desk from 8 to 5. You are looking at a situation where your staff has got to be out in the field. So management kind of changes direction totally. Management becomes a support system rather than the driving force anymore. They're not the ones in charge. They're not involved in every single decision that's made. And for someone like me who's been a CEO and used to making this decision, that was very, very difficult. One of the things that we did in order to show this more visually and to help explain it was we turned our organizational chart upside down. We start with our consumers at the top. They drive our services. Our direct services staff are next. The reality is anymore, if your direct services staff are not out there doing their job, then we in management don't have our jobs, because we are dependent on the ability of our direct services staff to make those placements and help people become a part of their community. The third group are your whatever management structure you have, supervisory or mid-management level. Comes down to the CEO then, who's the pivotal part of it. We tell our staff as management that our job is probably to make a couple of decisions a year that we need the overall information for, but lastly, that it's to support them. The bottom, or the foundation of the organization, is the board of directors. It's up to the board of directors to make sure the organization can be perpetuated, and it's up to the board of directors to make sure that the policy and procedure is in place to make sure that staff can do their job. When we take a look at staff, there are all kinds of things you can say about staff now. They're not the staff that we used to hire. They're not the people that we used to hire to come in and work in our workshops from an 8 to 5 time. Staff first have to be mission driven. They have to be very, very well trained. The biggest mistake you can make is hire somebody and say, okay, go place. They have to be outcome focused. They have to understand what they are actually looking for, and what they're looking for is to help a person find and keep a job. You've got to pay competitive salaries. We get back into that fiscal arena. If you don't pay competitive salaries, your people aren't going to stay with you. You need to start looking at bonus and incentive type programs. Performance standards. All of our job coaches know exactly what they need to do in order to keep their jobs. And they know how they're going to be rewarded when they're able to do that. Anymore, we hire for attitude and experience, and we don't really emphasize that more than degrees or specific skills. We want people that can come in and have an attitude of success, have an attitude and experience that says, I can help this person be the best that they can be. There are a lot of things out there like the predictive index and things along those lines that can help you pick staff, but the reality is you still need to be able to take a look at a person, listen to what they say, ask them that question about do they believe that people can and should work, and then you begin to get a good idea as to whether this is going to be a good staff member for you. Last but not least, your board of directors has to change somewhat. Our board of directors for years said, don't worry, Susie will get it done. Not a problem. Susie's got the staff to do it. Now, more than ever, staff have to be policy driven. They have to be outcome focused. They have to understand what they're there for as well. They have to promote the quality of the organization. They have to be out there not talking in terms of how big your buildings are or how big your staff is or how big your campus is. They need to be out there talking in terms of how many people you've placed, what the outcomes of those placements have been, and why the kinds of services you're offering is really good for the community as well as being good for the organization. They have to have business development expertise and experience. Our board and probably most of your boards are some of the first place that we make placements. They're willing to open the door to us and let us take that chance, and luckily we've been very successful. They also have the responsibility of perpetuating the organization. The fundraising never goes away. Never goes away. There's an organization in Tennessee that is right now doing a capital campaign for conversion. They feel very strongly that their organization needs to be totally community-based. They're not able to locate all of the dollars immediately within their existing resources, so they've started a capital campaign and are doing quite well. Kind of wish I had thought of that. As you get into this, the kinds of things that you need to expect as you move toward conversion and as you move toward more community-based kinds of services. You need to expect fear. Well, people are afraid of everything anymore. You know, fear is probably one of the most common emotions that everyone has. Those of us who think that our consumers and their parents and our staff don't read the papers and don't know the things we do are kind of nuts. Everybody's worried about what's going to happen with cuts. Everybody's worried about what's going to happen with the economy. Everybody's worried about if we go to war. So all of the things that have people afraid, you know, are there, and they're going to be there no matter what we do. But what is the best thing about that fear is if you work together in an organization and bring your staff together, that fear can actually turn into an incredible positive energy because you have everybody working together toward a common goal. And when you have that going for you, that fear actually becomes, instead of that impending doom feeling that wakes us up in the middle of the night and what's going to happen next, it actually turns it into a motivating force for an organization. And when you have fear turned into a positive force, you've got some real power as far as an organization goes. You can expect turnover. As you move to more community-based kinds of things and people take a look at how hard it is, and they look at it from a standpoint of how hard it is on a day-to-day basis, instead of looking at what the outcomes are, you're going to have some turnover. That's not so bad. You probably need to have that turnover, and you probably need to look at that as an opportunity to begin to hire some of these new people that are going to make the organization even better. It's hard to lose people, especially people that have been there for a while, but none of us are totally, all of us are expendable. You know, not one of us is guaranteed a job for life. You can expect chaos for a while, especially if you do a major conversion, because as good as the idea sounds and as organized as you think you are, chaos can be a part of it as well. The good news about chaos is the same thing as fear. It gives the organization an opportunity to pull together consumers, staff, parents, board, at whatever level, and really build in some really positive kinds of movement. And the last thing is celebrate the surprises. You will be amazed at where some of the most exciting things happen as you move toward community-based and as you move toward more employment-based. You'll have someone come in and say, we found a job for so-and-so, and it'll be, wait a minute, we never thought they'd be able to work. And all of a sudden you find they're out in the community, making a decent salary, doing good kinds of things. And our first job coach was our bookkeeper. She was tired of doing bookkeeping, so she wanted to be a job coach. She did an exceptional job and worked for us for about 4 years, and then I think went back to bookkeeping. But the reality was those surprises as you move toward community-based kinds of services are wonderful. Celebrate those every chance you get. Let everybody know, no matter what part of the organization they're in. The next part about conversion and about being more community-based and having people more and more as a part of their community is that you have to belong. You know, someone once said that belonging is the imperative moral value. All of us want to belong. We want to be part of our community and part of our world. in belonging, I think that sometimes we in organizations forget how important it is for us and our staff to be part of everything. While I was sitting on our Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors, one of our respected people in our community came up and said, "Boy, you'll never believe what they're trying to push down our throats with the Americans with Disabilities Act again." And I'm sitting there going, okay, here we go. And he said, do you know what they want now? Or do you know what they've started doing now? They've started putting Braille on all of the ATM machines. Now, isn't that the most ridiculous thing you've ever seen? No blind person's going to be driving a car to the ATM. And at that point, I kind of raised my hand and said, "Excuse me." I said, "But let me remind you of something. There are a number of people with visual impairments who are working throughout our community. There are numbers of people with visual impairments who are paying taxes, buying at the grocery store, buying their homes, and shopping all of the different places that you all work. Now, you've forgotten about them, but let me remind you of something. They're working. They may be going to work in a cab, they may be having a friend drive them, etc. But when they put that ATM card in to get their money out of maybe one of your banks, they need that. How many of you are comfortable giving your PIN number to someone else to get your money out? Not many. In fact, every place that tells us don't give your PIN number, don't do anything like that. So the reality is that Braille is critically important if in fact you want a part of the market that you've never had before. And that part of the market happens to be the market of people with disabilities. So it's critically important that as people within the community have these very, very short-sighted views of what disability is about, because when you think about it, most of us in the field have done a really good job of keeping people with disabilities kind of out of the mainstream. We've kept people either in workshops or we've kept them in isolated situations in school programs. The reality is that we've done a real good job of not allowing the community or not encouraging the community to think about what in fact should the community be doing to embrace diversity and to bring these folks that have buying power, that have the same wants and needs and goals as the rest of us do, to in fact be a part of the community. So belonging is critically important, not just from a standpoint of taking your message to the community, but also asking the community back, what are the kinds of things that you need to know so you can be better prepared to deal with people who can help your business be viable, to help our community experience more diversity. You've got to participate. You've got to participate yourself and the consumers that you serve. There are so many local government committees that the local government's always looking for people to be a part of. All of us are busy. All of us have probably far more on our plate than we ever anticipated in a million years. But the reality is, if we don't participate in the community's not even going to know we're there. Consumer involvement is critically important, and not just in civic clubs that have a club for people with disabilities, so they're separate. Not just there. We need for consumers to be involved in plain old ordinary clubs just like we are. They need to be involved in parts of the community where their input can be valuable. The other thing that we need to be are experts. And again, when the community thinks about disability, do they call you? Do they call you to talk about Americans with Disabilities Act kinds of things? Do they in fact know that you know more than a very narrow slice of life? So being an expert in your community is supposedly impossible, but I'm finding from a standpoint of being an expert about disability in our community, we're able to do that without any problems at all. And then something that we keep having pointed out to us is you've got to market, market, market. We still don't have a lot of people that call and say, please come and help us find someone who has a disability to be a part of our workforce. We're still out there, our job coaches are out there every day taking the message that we help people succeed, we help people succeed by helping them become a part of their community. And by the way, that also helps you, Mr. or Mrs. or Ms. Business person, because we can help you have an employee that's going to stay with you, that's going to do the job, that will grow as the program grows, etc. It's funny because as people have an answer for everything. When the economy's good, we can't find jobs. When the economy's bad, we can't find jobs. And what we're finding is, whether the economy's good or whether the economy's bad, business still needs the same thing. And business still needs reliable employees who can do a job in a consistent manner on a daily basis. And there's nobody better in most cases to do those jobs than the folks that we're working with in all different areas. So the market is something that I really can't stress enough. Funding and partnership collaborations are the kinds of things that will make any new effort work totally, whether you're just starting your conversion effort or whether you're going through it. As you put together a plan to take to your funding sources, and I guess that would be one of the major differences between now and 1984 and 1985 when we started. When we started, we basically put a plan together that says we want to try this. We want to see if it works, and yes, we'll guarantee everybody a place back, and we'll make sure that, that nobody gets lost in the shuffle. So we were able, in the early days, those of us that worked on conversion efforts, we were able to do a lot of things that aren't there anymore. I think today, if I was looking at converting, one of the first things I would do would be to put together a very strong programmatic and fiscal plan that I would then take to a variety of funding sources, not just the traditional ones that I had now. And first of all, I would make it outcome-based. I would tell them exactly what we could and couldn't do, focusing on the could. And the reality is that's no different than what we do now, is we prepare our budgets for whatever our developmental disabilities funding source is, our mental health funding source is, and our vocational rehabilitation funding source is. So I would put together a plan that was outcome and performance based. I would let them know for sure what the outcomes were, and that those outcomes were competitive employment, and that if it supported employment, the supports were in place to make sure that employment lasted. I would then make sure that they knew it was performance-based, and they would understand that we hired staff and that our organization worked from a performance base. I would take it to all of the current funding sources that I dealt with, and I would sit down with them in a new way of doing business. Funding source partnerships are very interesting. Sometimes in Florida, I find that funding source partnerships mean we take what they give us. The reality is now, if you're looking at conversion, you're looking at community-based kinds of things, it's a new approach. You've got to go to funding sources and say, look, this is what we're willing and able to do for you, and this is what actually, how it will make you look good as well. So it sounds very simple, and it sounds almost impossible in some cases now, but that's what they're in business to do, is to help people be the best that they can be. We've just let it become watered down by allowing the majority of the field to really offer services that don't go that way. So you need to stand up and be counted and go to your funding sources and say, this is what we can in fact and will give you. Look at new funding sources. Look at new funding sources not just for the existing services that you're offering, but also for new services that you can offer. For example, in our area, we found that we had no luck really working with our one-stop system and with our workforce board as far as people with disabilities went. We now have, however, we found that they had a significant number of the hard-to-place welfare recipients who they had no luck with at all. We now have a fairly lucrative contract with them to provide job coaching services for people who are significantly hard to place through the welfare system. And what that's done is added a whole new arena to us. And instead of us, over the past few years, instead of us being single funding stream with just a disability stream funding, we've really expanded not just in not just in our employment division, but all of our divisions into new and exciting funding arenas. One quick example, in our children's program, we started working with just children who had disabilities or diagnosed conditions. We've now expanded that to a program that pays a visit, a developmental visit, to all newborns in 2 counties. That's all newborns, not newborns with issues, not newborns who have been identified at any kind of risk, etc. So that program's gone, again, from a very narrow funding stream to the community realizing that if we can, in fact, provide the services now, the outcomes we do with people with significant disabilities, imagine what we can do with the rest of the world. So again, look at new funding sources along the way. And again, that goes to diversified funding base as well. If you're struggling out there, like most of us are, our organization is struggling just like everyone else. The more diversified your funding base, the easier it is to plug the holes when a crisis comes and to give you a little bit of stability as you go through voc rehab changing their rates, or the Medicaid waiver becoming overextended, or all of those things that are happening to us now. The diversification gives you the ability to take a more business-like as opposed to a crisis-based approach to management. So the funding, partnerships, and collaborations are probably 20 times more important than they were when we first started or when we ever even heard about supported employment years ago. As we kind of come to a close and kind of move to some questions, I'd like to kind of talk about the future, because the future is really very scary to all of us right now. It's unclear. It's unclear. But I think what Tri-County Tech believes, and I think what most of us in the field believe, is that we'll survive. We will survive. Gloria Gaynor, right? We will survive. But we'll survive primarily if we recognize the worth and ability of all citizens. If we are strong citizens, both business and personal, we've got to stand up for our beliefs. We've got to be strong in our business, and we've got to be strong in our personal lives. We've got to be flexible and willing to change. And that willing to change sometimes is on a dime. And also we need to never forget what our mission is. And it's a big mission. It's a mission that all of us have kind of taken on as we've come into this field. And that is helping people succeed. And hopefully, as we move through the next few years that are somewhat unclear, that if we basically sit back and make clear what we believe our mission is, what our vision is for people with disabilities, and we work very, very hard with all of the partners, but especially with that consumer as the number one focus to what we're doing, we'll be able to not only survive, but grow and prosper as well. So I think now I'm going to turn it back over to Terry, and we'll take some questions, and she'll tell you where we go from here. So thank you again very much for tuning in today.
Thank you, Suzanne. Well, we hope that you've enjoyed this webcast and that you will join us in the chat room. If for some reason you're not able to post your question today in the chat room, we will leave the bulletin board open all week so you can post your questions there, and there's a link off the webcast page for the bulletin board. Thank you for participating, and we will join you in the chat room.